Well, good evening and thank you so much for joining us here on The News at 6. I'm Mike Seela.
And I'm Dawn Baker. Tonight, a WTOC update on a case we've been following for nearly a decade. A man serving a life sentence for the deadly 2017 4th of July chase in downtown Savannah will now have 3 of those convictions overturned. Jerry Chambers was previously convicted on 3 counts of felony murder in 2020. All of it stemmed from that police chase. This is video of Chambers ripping through the streets of downtown on July 4th, 2017. Moments later, Chambers crashed the car, killing 2 passengers and a bystander, Scott Waldrop. Police testified in Chambers' 2020 trial. It started as a drive-by shooting and ended in a police chase. And today, the Georgia Supreme Court's ruling to overturn some of his convictions comes from a technicality. WTOC's Shay Schrader joins us now live in the studio. Shay, Chambers has been sentenced to life already.
Yes, he has. He won't necessarily be spending the rest of his life in prison, though, after the Georgia Supreme Court has taken a look at his case. Now, in 2020, Chambers was convicted on felony murder charges that were predicated on felony fleeing to evade police charges. However, the Georgia Supreme Court took a look at the case and decided that the prosecution didn't follow Georgia law when they went to prove those evasion charges. Jerry Chambers' defense team went in front of the Georgia Supreme Court in September of last year, fighting to get the felony murder and fleeing to evade police convictions overturned. The murder convictions are predicated on the evasion convictions, meaning that without the evasion convictions, you can't have the murder convictions. Chambers' attorney arguing for the convictions to be overturned based on a technicality with Georgia law.
There was insufficient evidence provided at trial for the jury to reach the conclusion that the officers were badged and uniformed, those officers who signaled Mr. Chambers as they were in pursuit of his white SUV.
You heard that right. Chambers' attorney arguing that the state didn't prove officers involved in the chase were badged and uniformed. And while that may seem small, it ended up being big in the eyes of the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Boggs writing in the opinion, "We conclude that an essential element of the offense of fleeing or attempting to elude is that the officer gave the signal to stop was, quote, in uniform prominently displaying his or her badge of office. We also conclude that the state failed to meet its burden of establishing that essential element beyond a reasonable doubt." The opinion goes on to say that this means the felony murder and fleeing to evade police charges had to be overturned. Chambers will be resentenced on 3 vehicular homicide charges, which each carry a sentence of 3 to 15 years in prison. Savannah Mayor Van Johnson saying Tuesday, at least some justice will be served.
We respect the court. We may not like what was said or done, but I do think in that there is still charges, there is still culpability, and we'll just see where that goes. There's still accountability for what happened that day, and it was a tragic day in our community.
Chambers was serving life with the possibility of parole before the other convictions were overturned. 2 Supreme Court justices did dissent on this opinion, meaning that they disagreed with the majority. Now, we don't know when Chambers will have his next sentencing hearing. It's yet to be set, but we will keep you updated about when he will be sentenced on those vehicular homicide charges. Shay Schrader, WTOC News.
Thank you, Shay. And to take a